Great, you have Denver steak. I'll take 2. You know, we're all so busy. It's a miracle that we ever manage to cook and sit down to a proper meal. I get it, but I've got a solution so seductive and simple you won't believe it. Meals that you can get on the dinner table in 20 minutes, and they're delicious. I'll start with scrambled eggs using my dad's low and slow method. These have a distinctly Indian flavor, and so I'm serving them with the crunchy Indian flatbread pappadom. On our regular feature, Ask Sara, I'll answer viewers' questions about eggs. We'll take you to a dairy where cows are so pampered they sleep on mattresses and have their tails shampooed daily. We're going to need some good cream to make our own butter, which I'll turn into the ultimate steak butter to go on the ultimate steak. No secret, it's one of the fastest meals around. My brother Peter joins me as I show you how to get the most out of a steak, even with a less expensive cut of meat. The secret lies in a very sharp knife. I can't wait for dinner, and I don't have to. These meals are on the table in 20. That's today on Sara's Weeknight Meals. Thank you. Funding provided by
the 2016 Subaru Legacy. With symmetrical all-wheel drive plus 36 mpg. It pairs well with every kind of road. Subaru, proud sponsor of Sara's Weeknight Meals.
And thanks to the generous support of... Hi, I'm Sara Moulton. Welcome to Sara's Weeknight Meals. One of the 2 things my dad knows how to cook is scrambled eggs. He cooks them slow and low, which makes them come out all creamy and delicious. I've taken this method in an Indian direction. What's so Indian about my recipe? The flavorings. Chili, ginger, cumin, turmeric, and pappadoms. Here we have the pappadoms. They're lentil wafers. They're dry, but they have to be cooked. I'm going to saute them. A little bit of flavorless vegetable oil. My favorite is grapeseed. It's going to take about 30 seconds on a side. It's going to start puffing up right away and curling all over the place. And then as soon as you can see that it's getting colored all the way through, you turn it over and let it go until you get a little more brown on it, a little golden. Wow. Okay, it's that quick. You see how easy that was? It's so much easier than using deep fat. All right, so we've got about a little bit of onion here, about ½ a cup. I've got butter in there that I've been heating up. And it's okay if the butter gets a little bit brown. It will add a nutty taste to your eggs. Just need to soften these up. Then I'm going to grate some ginger. Ginger is a wonderful, fresh ingredient used a lot in Indian cooking, and it's so tasty. It's good for your digestion. And I'm going to grate it on this new kind of microplane out. Think about an inch of ginger root is about a teaspoon of grated ginger root, and that's what we're looking for here. On the bottom of this particular one, there's a little holder for it, so that you can just, instead of the ginger going all over the counter, it comes right out where you need it. I'm gonna bang it in. All right, so there's our ginger. Serrano chili. I say jalapeno is your initial starter chili. And then we move on to a serrano, which is slightly stronger. It's like 25,000 in the Scoville unit range. Let me show you where the heat is on a chili. I'm sure you know, everybody always says it's the seeds. It's actually the seed pod, which is like the placenta. That is very hot, as well as the ribs that go around the inside. Now, I like spicy, so I'm gonna leave them all in. But if you don't, you can remove them, which removes a significant amount of the heat. You could also use a jalapeno, which usually is less hot. But what's wild and crazy about chilies is that from one chili to the next, the heat in the same family, like from one jalapeno to the next, from one serrano to the next, the heat can really differ. In go our serrano. And I'm gonna add our spices. We have turmeric and cumin. And turmeric is wonderful. It's often used in place of saffron because saffron's so expensive. And if you want that beautiful orange color that you get from saffron, you can use turmeric instead. But what's also great about turmeric, and we're adding a half a teaspoon, is that it's very good for your digestion. Okay, now here's some cumin, another Indian spice. And we're going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of this. Certainly, if you don't like these spices, don't add them. So let me get my eggs together. We're going to use 8 eggs. It's 2 eggs per person. Remember, just beat them till they're just mixed. Now, some Greek yogurt, which will give it a nice tang. Okay, you see this is very low. I'm going to put the eggs in, and we'll just let it go low and slow. All right, I got 2 plum tomatoes, and I like working with plum tomatoes because even out of season, they're pretty good. I just go around and leave the core in the center. I would have seeded these, but basically I try to leave them in center. We're gonna add this at the end because we want the tomato to have a little bit of texture. Okay, so there's our tomatoes. And you can see this is just beginning to have some curds in it. Now, some cilantro. First of all, if you hate cilantro, don't worry, there's 2 other herbs you can substitute in Asian recipes, and that would be basil or mint. If you find it in a Mexican recipe, you can either use oregano or parsley. Back to our eggs. Now, why do we want to cook them low and slow? Because if you cook them too fast, what happens is the protein in the egg gets very, very tight. Have you ever had eggs that consisted of these like tight curds with water around them? It's because the protein doesn't like to be cooked that high. It's gonna get tough. So see, these are nice and creamy. They're just perfect. I'm gonna add my tomatoes at this point. Just a nice little crunch and some color. A little acid counterpart to our creamy eggs. And then we're ready to load up on top of our pappadom. You could put it on the side too. You know, if you're gonna do it this way, you're gonna have to eat it with a knife and fork, which is perfectly acceptable. And we'll top it off with our chopped cilantro. So there we have it, scrambled eggs with pappadoms, a delicious twist on a tasty breakfast favorite for dinner. I get all sorts of questions on my website, and I just love answering questions. So I got one today from Lori Brown from Peekskill, New York, about hard-boiled eggs, and I'm going to chat with her. Lori, we need to tell everybody what your question is.
So the question is, how do you consistently get hard-boiled eggs to not have the green coating around the yolk?
Yeah, that nasty green line.
Yeah, it's awful. And if you're making deviled eggs, it's a pain. I just want to know, what's the secret to not having green yolks on hard-boiled eggs?
Okay, all right. There's 2 things you want to think about with eggs. One is you want a tender white. You know how sometimes it's really bouncy and chewy? And the second one is that green line. So I'm going to show you a brand new way to cook eggs where you have a very tender white and no green line. So you get a pot, you put a steamer insert in it. I've done that. And you put the water just to the bottom of the steamer insert. You bring it up to a full boil. You turn it down to a gentle boil, steam, so it's not so furious. And then you take your eggs, okay, and we're going to lower them in with a spoon, obviously, because you don't want to put your hand in there, and because you don't want to steam your hand. You just want to gently get your eggs in. I'm going to do 3. And then we're going to put the lid on, and you start timing from the moment you put the lid on. Here we go. You could do a whole bunch, but the water's not touching the eggs. So I'm going to give them 12 minutes. You can do between 10 and 12, depending. Sometimes I like the yolk a little bit translucent. And so then when this is done, you get them right out. So that's step 1. And the steaming makes the whites very tender. Somehow not being submersed in boiling water, which is what makes them tough, really helps. Step 2 is when this is done, you take it right out and put it into ice and water. This is the part that prevents the green line. And you let these sit here till they're completely cold. So these guys have already been boiled. The best way to peel them is under cold running water. I'm just going to do it by hand. But meanwhile, I wanted to ask you a question. So you said that we talked years ago when I was doing that live show on the Food Network. And
That's right.
What was your question?
My question was, how do you keep your lasagna from being soggy or getting watery when you take it out of the oven? And your solution was perfect.
What was it?
What you told me to do was to cook the noodles a little less, not al dente, but a little less than that, because they're going to continue to cook once you put the lasagna together and put it in the oven. And you were right, and it's worked ever since.
Oh, I'm so glad. Let me just go back to the egg. And by the way, an old egg is very good for hard-boiled eggs because it's got a huge air pocket. It's much easier to peel. So I want to show you what this guy looks like. First of all, I don't know if you can see how soft the white is here when I press it. It's so much softer. It's so much tastier that way. And now I'm going to cut this in half so you can see the beautiful yolk with no green line. All right, here's the money shot. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your question, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I see stuffed eggs in your future.
Yes,
Beautiful
you do.
stuffed eggs.
Probably quite soon.
All right, thank you. And if you want to send a question to me, please just go to my website, saramoulton.com, and maybe we'll feature it on Ask Sara.
We all should be shepherds of the land. You just have to look around. You see how we care for the land, how we care for the cows. And we say every cow in this barn is a lady. Treat them as such.
Anthony Urgaitis is a Connecticut dairy farmer who knows a thing or two about ladies. He and his partner George Malcolmus own Manolo Blahnik USA, the luxury shoe brand made famous on Sex and the City. The step from stilettos to farming wasn't far. Just across the street from their house in Litchfield, Connecticut, was beautiful Arethusa Farm. Developers wanted it. Tony and George bought it to save the view.
And we were not farmers. Barns need animals. So we bought our first 5 cows. They start calving. And they start calving. And we had to build another barn. Before we knew it, we had 100 cows, 150 cows in no time.
That was 17 years ago. Today, their 400 prize-winning cows live in a virtual bovine spa. Diets are created for each cow by a nutritionist. There's an exercise plan. Cooling fans keep them comfortable, as does their 24/7 human attendant. Even the stalls are cushy with soft rubber mattresses.
A little gift to it. It's like a firm mattress. You like firm? You know, if you have a bad back, you can come and stay in one of our stalls. But it is. This is really nice. Here's about I would say about 2 inches.
But the purpose of the mattress, of course, is comfort. Because they do stand, so it's not hard on their, the joints or legs.
Everything here is immaculate, down to the cow's tails. Every day they are hand shampooed and rinsed with special conditioner.
Very scientific brush. I can use for my hair, but this is what we do with the tails. I mean, we do wash them. And it's very important also to, once they're washed, to get the tangles out. So you want to keep this very clean because it does brush against their udders. So you're not getting anything into the milk supply.
And what a milk supply! From each cow, 10 gallons a day. It's truly farm to table. They bottle the milk and sell it in their store. They make cheese and butter, yogurt and ice cream. There's even a restaurant. A dairy empire held in trust for the community, all from a passion to save a beautiful piece of land.
There's an Aborigine saying, the land is crying, and certain people hear that cry. You feel that responsibility. It's just something that is in the soul.
There is nothing quicker to cook than a steak, and that's why it's the perfect candidate for a weeknight meal. You cook in no time at all, you let it rest, you take those juices, you make a sauce. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and I brought in some troops. My younger brother, Peter. He is my little brother, although clearly he got the better genes in the family. He happens to be a New York State Supreme Court judge, which I still can't believe. I mean, sometimes he's dignified. I don't know. But at any rate, you cook a lot.
Yes,
You cook steak a lot.
absolutely.
I hope you learned something today.
Well, I brought you a secret weapon.
What?
Actually, I brought you 3 secret weapons.
Oh, dear,
This
what?
is from I grew these on my terrace. This is a ají dulce pepper, which is...
Oh, I love those. I know those.
That's more like fruity.
This is like a habanero without the heat. It's got all the fruit and the mango-ness. I love these.
This is a black Czechoslovakian, which is roughly around a serrano pepper's heat.
Heat? Okay.
But then this one
Yeah? What's that one? I don't recognize that
is
one
the
at all.
famed and feared ghost pepper. 4 times or 10 times, I think, the habanero
Oh
pepper's
dear, I
heat.
think we'll put this guy. Will go over here. I'm just going to get him out of the way.
Yeah, don't even look at him.
Yeah, there we go. But we're going to use the ají dulce. Let me get the steak. Let's get started.
What kind of steak are you
Well, we're using a different cut of steak. So here's what I'm going to have you season this on both sides, okay? And then we can hose down on the water back there. So salt pretty nicely. So this is a Denver steak. There's other wonderful steaks that you can get now. A petite tender, a flat iron. I'm going to put this in the fridge and explain why in a second that we salt that ahead of time. Guess what we're going to make that you've never made before? I know you haven't. We're going to make butter. Or as Julie would say, butter. But briefly, why you salt the steak ahead of time. If you salt a steak beforehand, it tastes really steaky. If you salt it after you've cooked it, it tastes like steak with a salt hat. Up to 4 hours is great, why we refrigerated it. You want to pop that back in the fridge?
If you use truffle salt, would it
Yes!
infuse it with truffle flavor like you did
Brilliant!
before?
I like the way you think.
All right.
So we're going to use heavy cream to make this butter. It takes 12 minutes on a stand mixer. So I'm going to turn this on, let it rip, and we're going to go have a cup of coffee.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay. There we go. So let's go over here. Wow, see? Look at this. It starts splattering when it gets this far. Isn't that a miracle?
Unbelievable.
Isn't that fun?
Oh, my God.
But you see how, let me just move this over here. You see how watery it is?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just lose this, and if you could just move the machine, and then
Sure.
we're going to clean the butter.
Okay.
You know, the first time I made butter, I was so excited. It looked like this. I was like, wow, I did it.
Okay.
So I just threw it into a little ramekin, and the next day, I went to reach for it, and well, it was a couple days later, and it was stunk. Because you need to get rid of all these milk solids that are in there, or it turns bad. So we're going to wash it. So I got enough butter out. You'll do better. So what you have to do, and I'm going to let you do this,
Okay.
is you knead it with your hands. You just keep squeezing the butter in the water. We'll change the water several times. We keep squeezing it and washing it until the water is clear. Okay, so while you do the last round, I'm just going to mince our little ají dulce. What do you put them in usually, Pete?
I use for a fish reduction with butter, lime, salt, and those guys, maybe a little cilantro, and that's all you need to put on top of almost any fish. It's so good.
I think that is clear enough. Here, let me tell you what to do because you need to hose down. Put the butter in here, put the bowl in the sink,
Got it.
and hose down.
Okay.
And I'll finish chopping these. And I'm going to mince some garlic. What we're going to do now is make steak butter. And I guarantee that if you make homemade butter, you can do a takeout meal, reposition it on platters, pretend that you made it, garnish it up the wazoo, and nobody will know the difference because you made homemade butter. They'll be so floored. Just get some crusty bread. But we are going to make steak butter. What we're going to do is add to that, you're going to add about a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Yeah, here's this.
Okay.
Okay. And then you're going to add a half a tablespoon of Dijon, a half a teaspoon of garlic, some of our chilies, and then just a tiny bit of salt, a quarter teaspoon. Okay, so now what you do, this is sort of fun. We'll just do this much butter, that looks good. And you sort of shape it, smooth it out, and then you use the parchment You want to just
Yeah.
twist in the ends like a
Sure,
party
looks like
favor?
more taffy, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Now what you do is you pop these in the freezer, and then anytime you need them, we have one that we've already chilled. Very good, isn't that fun? We've had one that we've already chilled. I'm going to take that out in our steak that I salted earlier before you came to make sure it had more time with the salt. So here's some butter that we made before. And I'm going to bring it out just so it's not totally, see how firm it is? But you don't want to put stone cold butter on your steak. So let's get this started. Okay, this is actually a non-stick pan, but this is one that really retains the heat, so we're going to get a nice sear on our steak.
What kind of oil are you using?
Grapeseed oil, which I like because it's so neutral, because we're going to have plenty of flavor otherwise. So,
But also, isn't it, it can stand higher heats?
good point. Thank you. You do know a thing or two.
Once, just from watching you. You know.
No, that's not true. I'm just patting these dry, and we'll wait till that's really good and hot, and then we'll get them. Oh, Pete, you want to do some pepper for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, on both sides.
Does the pepper burn at all? Do you worry about that or not?
No,
really?
pepper's okay. Now, a couple of important things about searing steak is that it's got to be really, really dry. If it isn't, it will sweat and you won't get that sear. We want that nice crust. The pan has to be very hot. We need to hear sound when we get it in there. I think that's good. We're going to give it about 2-3 minutes aside. We don't turn it until you can feel it move. That means it's already got that crust. And you don't want to turn it or mess with it too much because that cools down the pan and it won't sear properly.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't this? So we're going to give them a couple minutes aside. You know, for rare, we're looking at 120 degrees. And then we're going to let them rest because you need to let the juices redistribute even in something as small as the steak, because if we took these out and ate them right away, all the juices come streaming out. Doesn't it smell wonderful?
Smells great.
Yeah. So you want to put the foil on
Yep.
top of there. Turn this off. All right. Let's talk about sharpening knives. This is a good old-fashioned whetstone. You either use water or oil, but you have to have the right angle on your knife. It has to be either a 20 or 15, depending on what angle your knife has. Then you have to use what's known as a steel. This just takes off the burrs, because a little bit of the knife comes off, and sort of realigns the metal. So another option is to get an electric knife sharpener, which is really very easy to work with. And you just put the knife in and drag it through. So for ladies who will understand this, the first round is like the coarse side of an emery board. The second round is like the fine side of an emery board. And the third one is sort of like a steel. And then they have manual steels. This is like this, only again, the angle is set. So you just pull it through and you've got your knife sharp. So there you go. So very important. Okay,
Oh, boy,
I
look
think
at that.
doesn't that look so delicious? We're going to save those juices and pour them over the steak along with the butter. So let's see. Let's take the thicker one, right?
Okay. It's not a very pronounced grain, is it?
No, but you were saying that you thought it was going this way.
I think so.
Okay, so we're going to... Oh, that's very nice.
now we're
Okay, so
talking.
we're going to cut it this way. All right, and we're going to cut it thin. And again, the whole point is that if you don't have a sharp knife, this is not going to work. It's going to be hard to cut the steak.
Do we need this piece right here? Because I just think I can do this.
Oh dear, okay. Now I want you to comment on the salt. Now what is
Oh,
it?
man.
It tastes like a beautifully seasoned steak,
It's
right?
got a lot of flavor.
Now we're going to pour our juices over. Here we go. You don't want to waste these ever. Ooh, that's the best stuff. And then we're going to put our butter on top, and it will slowly melt. I'm going to just cut it a little bit more. And then I'm going to have you lift up those chilies. Okay. All right, so sprinkle those all on top. You like to dine al fresco, you New York City person? Of course, you always eat on your patio.
And when I cook, I like to call myself al fresco.
Okay, you grab that,
Okay.
and I'm going to grab this beautiful salad, and let's head outside.
All right.
Will you pour the wine? I think we
Pleasure.
got a Cote de Rhone there. Wow, this looks so, look at all that wonderful juice. This is very colorful. I don't always
fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh yum yum. Alrighty. Well, I want you to take a little bite of that butter too, and tell me what you think straight up of the butter.
Okay.
Yes. And I want to thank you all for joining us. You know, you might think 20-minute meals are hard to get on the table during a work week, but when you start with a steak this flavorful,
This is so good.
it's a cinch. I'm Sarah Moulton here with my brother Judge, Peter Moulton. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you join us again for more of Sarah's
Can I have some of
Weeknight
yours?
Meals. You can. There's plenty left.
The butter is amazing.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Homemade butter just can't be beat, really.
It's incredible.
And that deeply flavored steak.
Wow. The chilies.
Ooh,
It's good.
oh, that is nice.
For recipes, helpful tips, messages, and lots more, visit us on the web at sarahmoulton.com/weeknightmeals. And go to our YouTube channel, Sarah's Weeknight Meals TV. Funding provided by
The 2016 Subaru Legacy. With symmetrical all-wheel drive plus 36 mpg. It pairs well with every kind of road. Subaru, proud sponsor of Sarah's Weeknight Meals.
And thanks to the generous support of